Hi everyone, my name is Alexander and I'll be here with you for most of this video. And our thesis is Macbeth's 7 soliloquies demonstrates how guilt is a major factor of Macbeth's actions and mental development throughout the story. Because guilt there's connections to guilt in each of Macbeth's soliloquies. Now, Albert's gonna present our first soliloquy and act it out with a cool visual along with it.
Two truths are told, as happy prologues to the swelling act of the imperial theme. This supernatural solicity cannot be ill, cannot be good. If ill, why had it given me earnest of success, commencing in a truth? I am Thane of Cawdor. If good, why do I yield to that suggestion which horrid image doubt unfix my hair and make my seated heart knock at my ribs? Against the use of nature, present fears are less than horrible imaginings. My thought, whose murder yet is but fantastical, shakes so my single state of man that functions is moderate in sunrise, and nothing is but what is not. In the first soliloquies, this shows the motive of guilt because he uses the sentence like, "My thought, whose murder yet is but fantastical, shakes so my single state a man than function is moderate in sunrise, and nothing is but what is not." This soliloquy presents Macbeth's stand on murder because Macbeth would definitely feel guilty if he did murder him. However, nonetheless, Macbeth still has these ideas in his head. This tells us how Macbeth doesn't fully grasp or understand the responsibilities that come with it, leading to little resistance he displays against Lady Macbeth's plot to kill King Duncan.
Well, I totally agree with what Albert just said, but now it's time for Misael to say something about soliloquy 2.
If it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly. If the assassination could trample up the consequence, and catch with his surcease success, that but this blow might be the be-all and the end-all here. But here, upon this bank and shoal of time, we jump the life to come. But in these cases we still have judgment here, that we but teach bloody instructions, which being taught return to the plagued inventor. This even-handed justice commends the ingredients of our own poisoned chalice to our own lips. He seer in double trust. First, as I am his kinsman and his subject, struck both against the deed, then as his host, who should against his murder shut the door, not bear the knife myself. Besides, this Duncan has borne his faculties so meek, hath been so clear in his great office, that his virtues will plead like angels, trumpet-tongued, against the deep damnation of his taking off, and pity, like a newborn babe, striding the blast or heaven's cherubed horse upon the slightest couriers of the air, shall blow the horrid deed in every eye, that tears shall drown the wind. I have no spur to pick the sides of my intent, but only vaulting ambition, which o'erleaps itself and falls on the other.
Macbeth isn't nearly as guilty at the start of the play as he is in the end. He knows that his plot is wrong, but Macbeth states how he has a vaulting ambition which o'erleaps itself and falls on the other, meaning his ambition oversteps its boundaries and is greater than his feeling of guilt right now, which is why he carries out the murder, not feeling guilty at the time. This also exemplifies how Macbeth understands his large ambitions could lead him into trouble, foreshadowing his future actions in the play.
Hey everyone, welcome back to me. That was some really fantastic insight by Misael right there. And uh, it's a couple hours past midnight for me, so I apologize if my voice isn't enthusiastic. But I just want to give a little warning. Up next, this soliloquy by me may have a little blood in the scenes. Is this a dagger which I see before me, the handle toward my hand? Come, let me clutch thee. I have thee not, and yet I see thee still. Art thou not fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight? Or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation proceeding from the heat-oppressed brain? I see thee yet in a form as palpable as this which now I draw. Thou marshalst me in the way that I was going, and such an instrument I was to use. Mine eyes are made the fools o' the other senses, or else worth the rest. I see thee still, and on thy blade and dudgeon gouts of blood, which was not so before. There's no such thing. It is the bloody business which informs thus to mine eyes. Now o'er the one half world nature seems dead, and wicked dreams abuse the curtained sleep. Witchcraft celebrates pale Hecate's offerings, and withered murder, alarmed by his sentinel, the wolf, whose howls his watch thus with his stealthy pace, with Tarquin's ravishing strides towards his design, moves like a ghost. Thou sure and firm set earth, hear not my steps, which way they walk, for fear thy very stones prate of my whereabout, and take the present horror from the time, which now suits with it. Whiles I threat, he lives. Words to the heat of deeds too cold breath gives. I go, and it is done. The bell invites me. Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or to hell. Macbeth, after killing King Duncan, finally realizes what a heinous act he has just committed. Macbeth's visualization of an invisible dagger and how he mentions wicked dreams in a soliloquy prove how guilt finally catches up to him and is now having serious mental effects that he cannot ignore. So that scene was pretty cool. Anyways, next up we have Misael again.
To be thus is nothing, but to be safely thus our fears and banquo stick deep, and in his royalty of nature reigns that which would be feared. 'Tis much he dares, and to that dauntless temper of his mind he hath a wisdom that doth guide his valour to act in safety. There is nothing but he whose being I do fear, and under him my genius is rebuked. As it is said, Mark Antony's was by Caesar. He chid the sisters when they first put the name of king upon me, and bade them speak to him. Then prophet-like they hailed him farther to the line of kings. Upon my head they placed a fruitless crown, and put a barren sceptre in my gripe. Thence to be wrenched with a unlineal hand, no son of mine succeeding. If it be so, for Banquo's issue have I filed my mind. For them the gracious Duncan have I murdered. Like rancors in the vessel of my peace, only for them and mine eternal jewel, given to the common enemy of man, to make them kings, the seed of Banquo's kings. Rather than so, come, fate, to the list, and champion me to the utterance.
Macbeth's current guilt isn't strong enough to affect his ambition. As he plans to kill Banquo and his sons, he is completely ignorant about the effects guilt has had on him after Duncan's death. As Macbeth's victim count grows, his guilty feeling also grows, impacting his character and decision making skills. This is the reason why, near the end of the story, all this guilt builds up through these seven soliloquies, and he feels hopeless or questions why these actions were worth it or not.
Time. Thou anticipatest my dread exploits. The flighty purpose is never overtook unless the deed go with it. From this moment, the very firstlings of my heart shall be the firstlings of my hand. And even now, to crown my thoughts with acts, be it thought and done, the castle of Macduff I will surprise, seize upon fief, give edge, the sword, his wife, his babes, and all unfortunate souls that trace him in his line. No boasting like a fool. This deed I'll do before this purpose cool. In Soliloquy 5, how Macbeth ruthlessly orders the murder of Macduff's wife, his babes, and all unfortunate souls that trace him in his line, it shows how Macbeth is a cold and tyrannical ruler. And it shows a similarity to Lady Macbeth, how Macbeth is suppressing his immense guilty feelings from his murderings, which later, like Lady Macbeth, backfires on him as he can't contain the enormous guilt anymore. This is an important part of the story because it builds the feeling of guilt further, and it demonstrates to the reader that through his actions, his guilty conscience is heavily affected. Oh yeah. Okay. Hey everyone, I'm gonna play the last two soliloquies without stopping like I just did, and we're gonna finish up as we've already passed the 10-minute.
I am sick at heart. When I behold this bush, will cheer me ever, or deceive me now? I've lived long enough. My way of life is fallen into the sere, the yellow leaf, and that which should accompany old age, as honor, love, obedience, troops of friends, I must not look to have, but in their stead, curses, not loud but deep, mild honor, bread, which the poor heart would fain deny and dare not.
Here we can see how Macbeth knows the consequences of his actions, of how he is plagued by guilt. In one of the lines, he says, I am sick at heart. This scene demonstrates how Macbeth falls into a depressing mental state as he now is contemplating over his actions rather than thinking like before. And also how to solidify his power again. Gil is depicted in the soliloquy because he says to himself, in their stead, curses. This could represent him resenting over his actions because of his guilt.
She should have died hereafter. There would have been a time for such a word. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day, to the last syllable of recorded time, and all our yesterdays have lightened fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
Before this point, Macbeth is affected by guilt, from things like hallucinations to nightmares, but even so, he's been able to move on. But after hearing the passing of Lady Macbeth, he seems to break, leading to nihilism, this idea that life is meaningless, and as he compares it, a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. It represents an end to his character, torn by fate and the consequences of his ambition, who up until this point have been able to continue. He comes to the idea that all the murdering, all the plotting, ultimately meant nothing.
Guilt was the reason why Macbeth was able to develop his actions and mental development throughout the seven soliloquies and story. All seven soliloquies demonstrate how guilt affects Macbeth mentally and physically over time, each containing different meanings which adds up to the end of the story as Macbeth faces his consequences for defending the prophecies the three witches foretold him.